Good morning, class. In yesterday's lecture, when we closed, we were discussing planar density. So let us quickly review what we have understood so far in planar density, and then we will continue our discussion. So planar density is basically a 2D representation of the bulk density, and it is being defined as the ratio of number of atoms lying on a plane divided by area of that particular plane. So to define planar density, you need two quantities: effective number of atoms on a plane and the area of the plane which is under interest. So every time when the question on planar density is there, you have to first look for the number of atoms and then area of the atoms. Typically, we will calculate planar density for simple cubic unit cell, face-centered cubic unit cell, and body-centered cubic unit cell for three different types of plane, namely 100, which is the side face, 110, which is the face diagonal, and 111, which is the body diagonal. Apart from that, you can also practice yourself for more complicated planes like 200, 211, 222, and many more complicated such numbers. You will see that your answer do not change. It is typically the same that we have here in one of these cases. Why? Because the fundamental idea is 100 and 200 planes are parallel. And whenever you have parallel planes, generally it contains the equal number of atoms. Okay, so let's quickly review the planar density for the 100 plane for the simple cubic structure. So 100 plane marked here is the side face where atoms sitting only on its corners. So if you compute the contribution of an atom to the plane, you can see only 1/4 of the atom lies on the plane. Therefore, each atom contributes only 1/4, and your total contribution is coming out to be 1/4 into 4, that equals to the 1 atom. And the area of the plane is, since both the edges of the plane is equal in dimension, equal to the lattice parameter A, so your area will be A square. Therefore, your planar density for 100 for the simple cubic unit cell is 1 upon A square. Likewise, now we can also compute the planar density for the 110 plane. You remember the 110 plane? This is the plane that lies along the face diagonal. Let's make the 100 plane in the same diagram. So your plane will be like this, right? So you can now compute the atoms on this. It is again the 4 corner atoms. So the effective number of atoms in the 110 is equal to 1, but its area will be different. Its height is same as the lattice parameter A, but its base length is now different. It is the length of the face diagonal, which is √2a. So your total area is under √2a square. Therefore, your planar density for 110 is equal to 1 upon under √2a square. And similarly, if I do the same activity for the third case, that is the 111 case, Let us make a drawing for 111. Your 111 is something like this. Right? It intersects at x equal to 1, y equal to 1, and z equal to 1. So if you try to compute the number of atoms on this, there are only 3 atoms at 3 corners. And they are also not contributing 100%. So what is the contribution of individual atoms to the unit cell? To see that, let's move to the next slide where you will get a better clear idea about the contribution of individual atom to the plane under interest. You can easily see the 111 plane makes a triangle whose edges are the one where there is an atom sitting on it. So if you try to look at the effective contribution of an atom to the plane, it is just one slice of the entire circular atom. And you can effectively find that this one slice is actually 1/6 of the total atomic area. Therefore, each atom contributes only 1/6 to the plane. And we have 3 such atoms. So my PD will be equal to number of atoms, which is equal to 3 multiplied by contribution of individual atom, which is 1/6. So 1/6 into 3 gives you effective number will be equal to half. Means only half of the total number of atoms are present on 111 plane. Now coming to its area. Now computing the area of 111 plane is little tricky. Why? Because its shape is triangular. If you remember your geometry from the primary school days, the area of the triangle is always equal to half into base into height. So we have at the denominator the area of the plane as half into base. Base, you know, the base, if you look at to the triangular plane, your base is basically the length of the face diagonal. Can you see where my cursor is there? So the base of the plane is equal to the length of the face diagonal. And you know the length of the face diagonal is root 2a. So 1/2 into root 2a into height of the plane. Now height of the plane is you have to calculate. So how do you do that? Let me show that in the diagram. Your height of the plane is this. So what you can do is, we know the total length of the base is under root 2a. So I can find this particular length as half of it, which is equal to under root 2a divided by 2, or you can say it is a by root 2. Similarly, we know this length is the distance between the two atoms, which also lies as the face diagonals. You can see it in the unit cell 3D version also. I am marking it. So that is also root 2a. So we know the side edge, which is root 2a, and the half of the base as a by root 2. From this, if you use the Pythagoras theorem, you can find out the height of the triangle. That will come out to be under root 3 by 2a. So if I now compute the total area of the triangular plane, it will come out to be like this: 1/2 into base, which is under root 2a, into height, which is under root 3 by 2 into a. So if you simplify this, your planar density comes out to be equal to 1 over under root 3a square. So here is the bottom line. Whenever you compute the 100 plane or direction, your length is divided by a, or area divided by a square. When you consider the 110 case, that is the face diagonal case, it is under root 2a, and when you consider the 111 case, it is under root 3a. So if you remember this, you can always attempt the linear and planar densities very easily. Is it clear? Any doubt so far in the 111 plane calculation?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So let's do more complicated situations. Now remember, what you need to do is find out the effective contribution of atoms to the plane and its area. For simple cubic unit cells, we have already did this activity. So no need to do it again. We have already did it for this one, for this case, and for this case. Now let us move to the FCC unit cell, which is little bit more complicated. You know, FCC unit cell is the one where you have atoms at the corners as well as in the middle of the faces. So if I focus on the 100 plane, you remember 100 plane is one of the side face. So your side face, the cross-sectional view of it will look something like this. What you can see is you have 4 corner atoms, which is contributing only 1/4 to the plane. But in addition to that, you have one full central atom, which is lying within the unit cell. So you can see this entire atom is within the plane. So your total contribution, effective total contribution from 100 plane will be equal to 1/4 each from 4 corners, equal to 1 atom, and 1 full atom from the face. That makes my effective contribution of the atoms to be equal to 2. And what will be the area? Area in this case is same, because this is edge length A and this is also edge length A. So the total area is A square and effective number of atoms is 2. So 2 upon A square is the planar density for 100 plane. Likewise, now if you look at 110 plane, you remember 110 plane is the one that runs parallel to the 2 of the faces. So the plane is such that it has 4 corner atoms and then 2 parallel lines running parallel to the face diagonals. And you know, if your line is passing through the face diagonal, let me show it to you on a 3D version. If your plane is running parallel to the face diagonal, let me show it here. It will run parallel to the face diagonal. So it will run like this. Am I right? This is your, sorry for the diagram. This is your 110 plane, right? And if you now see, if it is a BCC, an FCC structure, then you have these 4 corner atoms which are already marked. In addition to that, you will get additional atoms, which is the center of the face. One is here, another one on the top. So you will get one more here. So effectively on this plane, you have 4 corner atoms and 2 face atoms. I am going back to the 2D version now. So our plane is something like this, where you have 4 corner atoms and 2 face atoms. So if you carefully look at the contributions from the corner, it is 1/4, and there are 4 such atoms. So effective contribution from the corners is again 1. If you look at the face atom, what you can see is only half of the atom of the face lies on the plane under interest. So one half each is contributing to the face, making my total contribution from the face atom to be equal to 1. So overall contribution to the plane, 1 from the corner and 1 from the face, making it to be 2 atoms. And area of the plane is, its height is a and its base length is √2a. So my total area is under √2a square. So 2 upon under √2a square is my planar density for FCC. Third one is the 111 case. 111 case is something like this. You did it in the previous case also. It will be a triangular plane where 3 atoms are at the corners. Now, in addition to this, every edge, side edge of the triangle is the let me show it in the 3D version. So here it was, if this unit cell is the face-centered cubic unit cell, then on every face diagonal, you have an extra atom sitting. So if I show the face-centered atoms, then I will have 1 atom here, 1 atom here, and 1 atom here at the center of the face. So all of them now contribute to your 111 plane. So our overall situation is now like this, where my cursor is there. You have corner atoms, each contributing only 1/6, and 3 such atoms. So 3 into 1/6 makes half an atom contribution from the corner. And then you have 3 face-centered atoms, each contributing half to the plane. So half plus half plus half, that is 1.5 atoms from the face, and effectively 1/2 of the atom from the corner. Again, making my total effective contribution to be 2 atoms, now divided by its area. the area of the FCC 111 plane will be same as the area of simple cubic 111 plane. Why? Because the plane is same, only the number of atoms lying on the plane is changing. And in the previous case, you have seen that that area was under root 3a square. So I'm not computing it again. The area is same, only the effective number of atom is changing. Coming to the third type of the unit cell, which is the BCC unit cell. You know, in the BCC unit cell, in addition to the corner atoms, we have one full atom lying middle in the of the unit cell. So if I compute the planar density for 100 case, which is the first case, there won't be any change vis-a-vis to the simple cubic structure, because in the BCC unit cell, your face plane is same as the simple cubic plane, because there are only 4 atoms sitting on the corner of the 100 plane. So if I compute the effective number of atoms here, it will be 1 by 4 into 4, coming out to be 1 atom, and its area will be A into A equal to A square. So it is same as the simple cubic. Coming to the 110 case, you remember your 110 plane is the one which is running vertically parallel and passing through the face diagonals. So that plane is also passing through the body centered atom, in fact bisecting it. Let me show it in the 3D version. If I have a BCC unit cell, let me show the BCC unit cell. Here it is. Let us show the 110 plane here in the BCC unit cell. So your 110 is x equal to 1 here, y equal to 1 here, and your plane is like this. Right? So if you shade this plane, you can easily see that the plane is running through your middle atom. You can see it easily. If I shade it like this, you can see it is running through your central atom. The plane under interest is running through your central atom. So your effective contribution of atoms to the 110 plane is 4 corner atoms and 1 central atom, right? Let us go back to the 2D version. Here we were. So my overall 2D situation is like this. I have 4 corner atoms and 1 central atom lying in the middle of the plane. This time you can see your body centered atom is completely within the plane. So its contribution is 1 and 1 by 4th each from 4 corner atoms, making my total contribution to be equal to 2 atoms. And the area of the plane is known to you because it's one of the side is root 2a and the height is a. So your total area is root 2a square. Coming to the final case, which is the 111 case. Now 111 case will be little tricky. Why? Because your plane will be a triangular plane where you have 1 atom each sitting on its corner. Now many students gets confused that your central atom should also lie on this particular plane or not. Means the question is whether you should have a central atom here or not. Answer is no, it is not. Why? Because your 111 plane is basically an inclined plane. Let me show that in the 3D version. This is the 111 plane. So if I look along a direction which is from the middle of the face, my inclination of the plane is like this. So if I try to look along this yellow line, you can easily tell me that your body centered atom, let me show that body centered atom also, your body centered atom will be somewhere here. The position may not be precise. What you can easily see is the yellow line never passes from the center of the body centered atom. Why? Because the center of the body centered atom lies, the center of the body center lies along this vertical direction. If I go vertically up, then this line passes from the center of the body centered atom. So your 111 plane, which is inclined along the yellow line, will never pass from the center of the green color atom. And because of that, you will never consider its contribution to the 111 plane in the BCC unit cell. So let's go back to the 2D version. So the situation that we have is now only 3 corner atoms making the 111 plane in the BCC unit cell, which is precisely the same situation as the simple cubic unit cell. You can see the diagram of simple cubic unit cell and the body centered cubic unit cell for 111 plane is same. So its planar density will also be same, which is half an atom divided by the total area of the plane, which was under root 3 a square. So any doubt up to this point? How to compute the linear and the planar densities in 3 different variants of the cubic unit cells? किसी को कुछ नहीं समझ आया है तो पूछो. Generally you will find at least one numerical problem either based on linear or the planar density in the exam. So it's an open question, always appear in the examination. So practice it well, and I hope all of you will be able to attempt it. Okay, I guess there are no further doubts. Then let's move to the next topic. Our next topic is X-ray diffraction. Since we have begun this course, I kept on repeating myself on 2 different aspects. The first one is the structure property correlationship. I kept on saying that you should learn structures, because if you know the structure, you can predict the properties, and if you can predict the properties, you will be able to predict the performance of the material. So knowing structure is very, very important. And then for last couple of days, we are learning different types of structure, and our principal focus was on crystal structure for last couple of days. We understood that the periodic arrangement of atoms in solid makes a crystal, and because of this periodicity, material exhibits unique properties. And the property changes when the structure changes. For example, if you have iron in BCC structure or iron in the FCC structure, their properties are different. The melting point of BCC iron is around 1000 degrees centigrade, while the melting point of an FCC iron is around 1300 degrees centigrade. So simply moving from BCC to FCC, you can alter almost all properties of the material, and that too in a drastic manner. You can consider the 1000-degree melting point to 1300-degree melting point. So knowing structure is very, very important. And more interestingly, knowing the crystal structure is extremely important in predicting the properties of the material, because in most of the industrial application, the material that we use is generally the crystalline material. So our theoretical understanding is all well. There are 7 different crystal systems and 14 different Brevis lattice types, making different possible combinations of structures in the solid. Let's say I give you an unknown material and ask you to tell me what is the structure of this particular material. So how do I know whether the material is crystalline or not? If the material is crystalline, what kind of unit cell it possesses, means which crystal system it belongs to, and then what is its Brevis lattice, whether it is FCC or BCC or simple or end-centered, how do I know? So the method with which you can experimentally determine the crystal structure of an unknown solid is called X-ray diffraction. So now we will going to study X-ray diffractions, and then we'll learn how the experiment on X-ray diffraction can lead us to identification of crystal structure in the solid. So I will going to teach you the experimental method of determining the crystal structures of the solids. The basic principle with which the experiment will going to work is depend on the Bragg's equation. If you remember your last year's course on optics, you have been taught in detail the phenomena of diffraction. You know that if your slit width is of the order of the wavelength of the radiation, then you have superposition of waves taking place. The superposition could be constructive or it could be destructive, and accordingly you get dark and bright patches. This phenomena was referred as the diffraction. So if you have a crystalline material, the planes of atoms behaves as if it is they are making slits. Why? Because you have atoms sitting on this green color line, then you have another parallel atomic plane which is some d distance away. So in between these two green color line there is an empty space. So density at green color is higher and density in between them is lower. So this arrangement of parallel atomic planes makes it possible to work as the equivalent version of this slit. Now, if your radiation, incoming radiation falling on the solid is same as the interplanar spacing. Now, in last couple of numerical problems, you have seen our interplanar spacing is of the order of angstrom. So if you have a radiation whose wavelength is also equal to few angstroms, then it can produce diffraction. Means if your material is crystalline with interatomic layer which are some angstrom distance apart, if it is being exposed with a radiation whose wavelength is also couple of angstroms, then it can produce diffraction. Now, the important question is what kind of radiation has its wavelength which is of the order of angstrom? You remember the visible light has its wavelength which is typically of the order of 4000 angstrom. So it is very, very large as compared to the D value in the solid which is 1 or 2 angstrom apart. So visible light cannot be diffracted with crystalline material because your lambda is not same as D. If you look into the electromagnetic spectrum and find out the lambda value, which is typically of the order of an angstrom, you will see the corresponding source which gives you an angstrom wavelength is your X-rays. So if you want to produce diffraction from a crystalline material, what you need to take is a radiation source in the form of X-rays. Let us assume we have an X-ray source and it falls on the crystalline material which is made up of atoms making parallel planes marked as these green color lines, and the blue color lines are the incoming radiation. Then this geometry is known to you. You have studied it in your last class in optics. So if I have two rays like ray 1 and ray 2, then because of their positions, the second ray introduce a path difference which will be equal to 2d sine theta vis-a-vis to the ray 1. That means the path difference between ray 1 and ray 2 is equal to 2d sine theta. Now we have been taught in the class on diffraction that if this path difference, which is equal to 2d sine theta, if it is equal to the integral multiple of wavelength, which is equal to n lambda, then you can have a constructive superposition. That is, you can visualize the diffraction. And if it is half integral multiple of lambda, that is lambda by 2 or n lambda by 2, then you will have a destructive interference and you can have a dark patch. So whenever this condition n lambda is equal to 2d sine theta is satisfied, we get the diffraction. What does this mean? This means that for a given X-ray source having fixed lambda, the given lattice plane having a fixed d value, you will get your diffraction which is positioned at unique theta position. Means if I read the theta position of diffraction, I can tell what kind of crystalline structure the solid is possessing. Since we are running out of time, I am not discussing how from the sine theta you will be able to tell the structure of the solid. This we will do in tomorrow's class. So for the time being, we are closing our discussion, and in tomorrow's class, we will continue our discussion from the Bragg's law, how one can measure or identify the unknown crystal structure of the material. So we are closing now. If you have any doubts or queries, please write them to me. I will answer them.